This is game 2 of the Unland Cup top 8 quarterfinal match between Mike playing Archimago at the top of the screen and Kellen playing Deathspeaker at the bottom of the screen. Unland Cup was a best of 3 single elimination at the top 8 cut, and a 10 card sideboard was allowed after game 1. If you have peeked ahead like a 4th grader reading a choose your own adventure book, you're going to see that this video is very long. This was a long game, and I think both Mike and Kellen were tired at the end of it. Honestly, I'm tired after watching through it. I thought about cutting the video into 2 parts, but, you know, most people don't even watch a 30-minute YouTube video, and I figured if the diehards are willing to watch 2 30-minute videos all the way through, they'd also be just as happy watching a single 60-minute. Both Kellen and Mike are looking at their mulligans, I think, and getting set up here. I am not sure what sideboard options they have made, but I have taken a quick peek at the deck lists, and I will list the deck lists down in the description below this video. Kellen drawing into a turn 1 Funeral Pyre and a Valley of Delight. It looks like a pretty strong opening sight hand for him. He's got a Land Surveyor, which he also likes to see. And I think that's a Common Sense. And a Clamor of Harpies. And it looks like he was thinking about, yeah, he's going to mulligan out the Clamor of Harpies. I think he just wants to hit curve, and he knows that Archimago is not running that many minions to take advantage of that that free strike. It's a little harder for me with the camera angles to see what Mike had in his hand, his opening hand, but he's mulliganing for a sight and 2 spells. So, half of his hand. And again, I think he's looking for a solid mana base to start out with. He's got a Perilous Bridge, it looks like, in his hand, which is good for Archimago. He wants to stall out. He wants to prevent things from attacking into him until mid to late game. Turn 1 for Kellen looks like a Valley Delight. He called water on that. Turn 1 for Mike is a step. Turn 2 for Kellen, a Windmill. And there come the Land Surveyors for card draw. Mike drawing a spell for turn. Taking a peek at his hand there, I did see a Magic Missile in his hand as well. And Perilous Bridge comes out. That's a good location for the Perilous Bridge, right in the center of the grid there. Again, it's going to prevent ground attacks from the top border. And he's going to play 2-drop, which is Kettle Top, onto his home site. Kellen untapping, setting up for his next turn here. Plays a second Land Surveyor for the site draw. Taps to play a Ruins. 3 mana for turn. He's going to go ahead and... he was thinking about moving to try to start getting into position around the Perilous Bridge, but he decided against it in the end and is just leaving it up on the Windmill site. Mike about to play his 3rd site. He's got a second Perilous Bridge. He's building a wall on his side of the board. It's a pretty strong opening orientation for him. And now he's bringing up the Kettle Top. Kellen drawing a spell for a turn. Gonna tap for a sight. He's gonna go the other way. He didn't want to have to play that Funeral Pyre, but I don't think he had another sight in hand. And again, I think he wants to hit his he wants to hit his sight drops per turn. He plays a Root Spider defensively, and it looked like he might have actually had another sight in hand. So I'm gonna have to take a peek and see if I can see what that is, because I'm not sure if there was a reason why he chose why he felt like he had to play the Funeral Pyre instead of whatever the sight he's holding is. Like if the sight that he has in his hand was a better trump or ability card for a future potential scenario. I'm not sure what the thought process was on that. Mike, I'm just taking another peek at his hand. It looks like he might have a Divine Heal. It's hard to tell. Some of those cards are foil. And that might have been a Fields. Oh, he's playing it. Yeah, it's definitely a Fields. Fields of Camlin. No Genesis on that, though. He doesn't have the threshold for it. It takes 3 fire threshold to trigger the Genesis. And he's going to pass and move the Leprechaun over. I think he's going to start trying to attack in for some damage on that Leprechaun, with that Leprechaun. Kellen, paying 2 to Common Sense. He's searching off camera, so I'm not sure what he's looking at or what he's going to pull. And looking at his hand, that he's pulling a third Land Surveyor. So he's gonna pull the Land Surveyor into his hand with the Common Sense, and it does look like he had another sight in his hand. So again, I'm really curious to see what that is, because I don't know why he was keeping that instead of the Funeral Pyre on the previous turn. I was really hoping I could get a peek, but it just wasn't quite in frame there. He's gonna cast the Land Surveyor to take that next sight. He's got Carleon. Carleon on the back row. It has to live on the back row. I think that is the card that he pulled from the Land Surveyor and not the card that he was holding. And that's just my best guess based on how he pulled that card out of his hand. Trying to take another peek here. I think Mike might have, maybe that was two magic missiles. No, it's just one. It's one, and then maybe an Arcane Barrage. It's really hard to tell on some of these when they're foil. You know, I think that one card in the middle there is a Black Plague. He doesn't feel like he has a lot of options, or a lot of options that he's happy with. He's playing a Root Spider, burrowed under his home site. Again, just another defensive play. I don't think he wanted to put it up on the Perilous Bridge because it's just inviting a trade with Kellen's Root Spider under the windmill. Kellen sitting at 5 mana for turn. 3 land surveyors on the board, just kind of hanging out. He's choosing to move with the Land Surveyor and then moving with the Root Spider. Just another defensive move with the Root Spider to prevent Mike from being able to attack in with the Kettle Top on his next turn. I think he still has 5 mana. He hasn't played a spell yet, and here's one in hand. It looks like Apprentice Wizard. There it is. And he's going to play and draw a spell off of that Genesis. playing the Apprentice Wizard over on the right. Again, I think he can't do it. He can't do it on the Funeral Pyre because it would disable with the Root Spider under there. And I think he's just trying to spread out and not clump too much on onto his sites. You can get into trouble sometimes if you clump too many things onto sites, just because it invites like getting 2-for-1 with a lot of different spells. Magic missiles, for example. I mean, Mike could play a magic missile right now and take out all 3 land surveyors. There's not a lot of incentive for him to do that, just because that would kind of be what Kellen would want. Get all those things into the graveyard and then be able to recast them with the Deathspeaker ability. Mike choosing to blink his Root Spider and then trade Kellen with his Root Spider over on the Funeral Pyre, under the Funeral Pyre. He's tapping for a site. It's going to be a free city. Playing that onto his back row. And attacking in for 2 with the Kettle Top. Free city on the back row is a pretty defensive positioning. He could have also played it up to adjacent to Fields of Camelon or Perilous Bridge. Also, I feel like those would be fairly strong. But maybe doing that would be inviting your opponent to play wide, and it's usually disadvantageous for Archimago to play wide, just because he wants a tight pattern for an eventual Craterize. Kellen able to get out an Angel's Egg, and being able to remove the Kettle Top with advantageous Violamp, and then just working out some moves. Again, spreading out. It is the Perilous Bridges are keeping him somewhat at bay. It's difficult to get in there, but he can start snaking in if given enough time. It's just a question of whether or not Mike is going to allow that. Mike thinking about how he wants to handle this. He has a lot of cards in his hand. Again, like, these are both control decks. They typically are going to be holding a lot of cards. If not now, then by mid-game, definitely. It's a little easier for Archimago to stack their hand, just because you're typically running a bunch of like these cycle cards where you pay 2 to play something, pitch it into your cemetery, draw a card off of that for free, which basically just allows you to keep cards in your hand every turn and cumulatively add to the volume of your hand. He's playing a Ruins. Again, keeping a tight grouping on his sites, because it's typically more advantageous to keep that tight grouping to take advantage of Craterize. Choosing to blink. I believe that is 2 magic spells in his cemetery at this point now, 2 blinks in there. And there's a third one with Common Sense. His Common Sense target is going to be, let's see if we can see what it is here. Looks like he stopped on a Lightning Bolt to consider it. Maybe a blink. He's gonna take a blink. He's got a grapple shot. No, he's... So he fetched a Common Sense with his Common Sense, and then he used that common sense to grab the blink. So again, casting out of his graveyard or cemetery, banishing those cards. He doesn't want to give Kellen an opening to clean those out with a Funeral Pyre, just in case he has a Funeral Pyre in hand to do that. Kellen readying his turn. It looks like he has maybe like 3 or 4 spells. He's got a Feast for Crows in his hand right now. He's holding on to it. I'm curious to see what he's going to call here. If he's going to choose to call Craterize. He has a couple more turns to do it. I mean, Craterize, it costs 8, plus you have to have a site in hand to pitch. Archimago only currently sitting at 6 sites, so 6 mana. He plays an Apprentice Wizard with a Genesis to draw a card again. And he's just going to start the parade in to the only site that he has access to here. Land Surveyor for attacks for 1 point, Violent attacks for 2. And then he's just kind of shuffling back and around here. I think he's grouping up a couple more targets onto the site that his Deathspeaker is inhabiting, just because in game 1 Mike was able to get off a lot of lightning bolts onto Kellen, and just like lightning bolt, recursion, lightning bolt. It was a lot of sudden damage in. So if he has multiple targets on the site with his avatar, then it is harder for Mike to be able to do that, because it's going to incite it's going to trigger a random roll for targeting. That's just how lightning bolt works in sorcery. The card doesn't just straight do 3 points of damage. You choose a location and then you random roll to assign a target for 3 points of damage. It can still many times do 3 points of damage to something. You just have to choose a time when only the thing that you want to take the damage is inhabiting a site. Mike is taking a look at the board state. So the game has been going pretty fast up to this point, but once control decks start hitting like mid to late game, their moves carry more weight, and that requires a little bit more thought, because it's really easy to start making misplays that are going to be disadvantageous to you if you're not careful. Another free site up in the middle of the board, and again, like a pretty good location for Free City. I feel like Mike has gotten some really good defensive site spread this game, with the 2 Perilous Bridges, 2 Free Cities, 3 of them in there. Kellen able to get out a Funeral Pyre, and I think he was only able to sweep out 1 magic spell, but sometimes 1 is all you're going to get with Archimago. An experienced Archimago player, and especially a good player like Mike, he's not going to keep 2 or 3 magic spells in the cemetery if he can avoid it, just because of the threat of your opponent running a Funeral Pyre and sweeping them out. Kellen's got some attacks coming in. Again, just trying to leverage the situation that he has going on here. He's got a lot of bodies on the board, and so he just wants to get as much of that damage in as he can. Again, I'm not 100% sure because it was hard to get a good look at Mike's hand earlier. I thought I saw a foil Divine Healing, so he might have that as an option. I don't think he has Threshold for it yet, but I think he would just need to play one more Earth Site in order to do that. Kellen playing an Earthquake, and he's trying to use it to reposition his own site. So Caerleon is a water site. Earthquake would force a bury on all minions and artifacts, but if your minions and artifacts are on a water site, it can't bury, because the effect bury only applies to land sites, not water sites. The effect to get things under a water site would be submerge. But Mike is pointing out if he attempts to move Caerleon up away from the back row, it turns off that site's ability to produce mana and threshold, and if it loses the water threshold, then it's no longer a water site, and then it would be subjected to the bury ability from Earthquake. After having that conversation, I think Kellen changed his mind and did not go through with that. He was hoping to be able to get a positional a positional move up, and not lose any of the stuff sitting on that site. Plays his Feast of Crows, and he's calling Divine Healing this time. There it is. Mike did have a Divine Healing in his hand. He's not calling Craterize, and I think he's not calling it because he's been able to actually like swing in for a good amount of damage. He's got him down to 12. He still has a lot of minions on the board, so I'm thinking that the thought process with Kellen is that he can race him and just hope that he doesn't get a Craterize on the next couple turns here. Mike's sitting at 7 sites. He needs 8 mana to cast Craterize and then 1 site in hand to pitch for it. I thought I saw Mike was holding a Poison Nova as well, which is not great for Kellen. Just because he could definitely use that to start sweeping out his minions, if that's true. I mean, he definitely would have the mana to cast it. If he played it now, I mean, he'd sweep out everything in there. He'd sweep the Imp, the Wizard, the Land Surveyor. And that represents, what, 4 damage a turn, swinging in. Mike thinking hard about this, again, like weighing his options. I think he was, you know, before the Feast of Crows was called, he was banking on that Divine Heal, and I don't think he was sweating going down to 12 just because, you know, like you swing for 7 and you go back up to almost 20. There's the Poison Nova, like I said, like it just clears out everything. It's going to swing tempo, take some of the wind out of Kellen's sails, and honestly, buy Mike like 2 or 3 more turns. This is going to take Kellen a couple more turns to set up here, I think. Mike playing a Common Sense. He's looking at his options. He's moving past some things that he usually ends up grabbing, like Blinks. What I've noticed from game one, Mike typically was grabbing the blinks early on his searches, and then later game he shifts to more of the damage, more of the damage potential cards. Now he's opting the common sense for a common sense. And we'll see if he plays that or keeps it in hand. He's going to keep that one in hand and then pass turn back to Kellen. Kellen drawing a spell for turn. It's really hard to see that. It was either an Apprentice Wizard or a Black Plague. Maybe. Mike still has a lot of cards in hand here. I'm counting 6 or 7 spells and a sight. Kellen tapping for a Funeral Pyre. He's got the 3rd Funeral Pyre in his deck out, and it's a great Funeral Pyre play to sweep out the Poison Nova and a Common Sense from Mike's Cemetery. Kellen now sitting at 7 mana for turn. He's got 7 mana for turn, but he really only has the one single attack vector into Mike's sights, which is into Kellen, excuse me. And he casted a Lantean Fate. Lantean Fate is Mike is commenting that messes him up. It does mess him up. He's gonna lose all of his thresholds. Kellen recasts the Land Surveyor to draw another sight, and then passing turn. Kellen has 4 spells and 2 sights. Mike asked for a hand check. This is a really advantageous Atlantean Fate for Kellen. Just turning off all of Mike's thresholds, I think, puts him in a bind, because now he's sitting at 4 water threshold, and he's not really running a ton of, if any, water in this deck, and a single air threshold. That sight, I need to pause the video. The reflection is awful, but that sight is a windmill. So now he's sitting at 2 air and 1 earth. 1 earth will get him the common sense. Common sensing for a disenchant to disenchant the Atlantean Fate, because that was very problematic for him. It really prevented him from being able to cast his hand. Gonna play that gonna play another common sense from his hand. I think this is the 3rd common sense of the game. And looking at his targets, let's see what he chooses. He's got a blink. He's going for the cycling cards again, I think, because he's at 8. He's at 8 sites, and Kellen played Feast for Crows, and Kellen called Divine Healing. So 2 Craterizes are still in this deck. So if Mike can thin the deck out and draw into a Craterize, it's going to put Kellen in a much tougher position. Kellen's also played all 3 Funeral Pyres, so the danger to Mike's Cemetery is minimal. I think the only way Kellen could get anything else banished out of there at this point would be if he was running a Mirror Realm and did a Mirror Realm on a Funeral Pyre. He's going to play a Wormlow Tump. Very good card in these control decks that rely on like cemetery recursion. Kellen earthquaking, and earthquaking just to do the reposition. Not a bad option there. He repositioned out one of the perilous bridges, put it on the back row, and brought up the ruin along with Archimago. And that gives him a second sight as an attack vector in the center here. 2 for a Violimp. It'll come in and do 2 points of damage, and then be a 2-body ready to start swinging. At this point, I mean, I feel like, not to be Nostradamus here, but it feels like Kellen is in a really good position at this point in the game. But as we know, this video is 60 minutes long, so we're only halfway through this game. So there's got to be something here to kind of stall out at this point, and Kellen's gonna, like, there's gonna be something coming up here that is going to give Kellen some problems. Mike lamenting that he wished he had a little more life gain. In addition to the Divine Heals, he's also running Davril Vampires, but has obviously failed to draw into any of them yet. Taps Archimago for a sight, so he's now holding a sight in hand in addition to 8 sights on the board. That would give him the 8 mana needed for Craterize, plus the sight to pitch. Taking a quick look through his hand, just to see what his options are. And again, some of the runtime on the back end of this video, it might just be with control decks when they hit these stages in mid to late game. All the moves become more ponderous. They require much more thought. Just because it's like you don't want to make a mistake that you're going to start paying for, and the margins start becoming a little more dire. Like Mike sitting at 10 health right now. If he doesn't have any healing, he needs to play more defensively. Mike apologizing for taking a little bit more time to think about it. But again, like I said, you know, like these control decks, you hit this point in the game, everything takes a little bit more thought. He's going to go ahead and pay 2 for a Lightning Bolt to remove the Imp. Again, when he's sitting at 10 with no healing, the Imp is it represents a non-inconsequential threat, being able to attack in and start attacking him for 2 per turn. It starts to put a timer. It does put a turn timer on him at that point, as well as moving Archimago back. I think he recast Blink with Archimago's ability to banish cards in the cemetery in order to move Archimago again back away from sites that were adjacent to Kellen's. Afraid of more Violimps coming in and pinging for 2. Even just the 1 Violimp that he just removed and put into the cemetery, the Deathspeaker can recursion that for 2 points of damage. Root Spider under the Perilous Bridge. A little curious why he chose the Perilous Bridge as a location, since the Perilous Bridge is already pretty well guarded. He could have also just put the Root Spider under, like, the ruins? Kellen dropping the egg on his back row, taking a step forward. Playing a Grandmaster Wizard, gets to draw 3 cards on that Genesis ability. Kellen also at 8 mana at this point in the game. He spent 6 for the Wizard. He's got 2 left for turn. He's taking a quick peek back through his cemetery just to see which Genesis minions he still has that are potential castables. I didn't get a full look. There might have been an Apprentice Wizard in there, which he wouldn't be able to take advantage of since he only has 2 mana and requires 3. And a Vile Imp, which doesn't have a target available for it at this time. Kellen was asking if he could change the positioning on the Grandmaster. Typically, sorcery players are pretty accommodating and will allow like a reposition. Mike brings up the fact that because when you play the Grandmaster Wizard, you draw 3 cards, you get new information from those 3 cards, which would then possibly affect the decision on where you would have played it. So because there's new information revealed, he was less willing to let Kellen roll that back. And Kellen understood that, and he immediately knew that that's fair, and that totally makes sense. Kellen choosing to bring up the Land Surveyor, bring up the Apprentice Wizard. Again, I think he's just hugging the Deathspeaker, afraid of potential lightning bolts. I think game 1 really shell-shocked him when he got like double, triple lightning bolted. Mike is asking Kellen for a threshold check. And he's doing an Earthquake. He's doing an Earthquake specifically to swap the Carleon, bring it up off of the back row. Because he's got a Pillar of Zyros out, and that's gonna give 7 points of healing. So it's like a divine heal. That was a rough. That was a rough swing. Mike moving forward with the Root Spider and picking up the egg, which was now buried from that Earthquake move up with Carleon. And again, like they discussed previously, as soon as Carleon moves up off of the back row, it loses that water threshold, and it no longer becomes a water site, it just becomes like a blank land site. And because it's a blank land site, then things can be burrowed with that keyword, or buried with that keyword under it. My passing turn to Kellen. Kellen, I think, a little down on that last turn and having everything just kind of excised out. Paying 2 for a blink. drawing a new spell from that. Doing a mana recheck. Again, Carleon, in addition to no longer giving Threshold when pulled off the back row, also no longer gives mana. Kellen, finding an answer for the Root Spider, plays Great Famine. End of his turn, it will kill the Root Spider as the only valid target for that aura. And he's tapping for Tinted Gel on his back row. I didn't mention it earlier, but they did talk about that as well. When the Pillar of Zyros came out, typically, the Pillar of Zyros would not have affected Kellen's Cemetery because Wormlow Tump was in play. But because he lost an Earth Threshold, when Carleon got moved forward, it shuts off the Wormlow Tump's ability. And then at that point, it allows everything to get banished out. Again, I had to pause the video real quick to see what that was just because of the glare on the camera there. But that is a Merlin. A Merlin for 3. And looking at Mike's deck and sideboard list, Merlin was a sideboard in. And I think he's sideboarding it in to give himself an ability to dig for the cards that he wants a little more thoroughly. I think he's definitely still looking for Craterizes and not finding them yet. He gets to pick one here. I think that is the Craterize. But he's thinking about it, so maybe he's not gonna pick it. Or is that not a? It's really hard to see on. It's really hard to see Mike's hand sometimes with the angle of the camera. I mean, I could definitely see a kettle top and what looks like maybe an angel's egg. He's gonna pick one. If I had to guess, I would guess angel's egg, based on the like sliver that I saw. He's using Merlin's ability again to take a look at the now new card on the top of his spellbook. I'm really curious. I'm gonna have to rewind later to see if that was a Craterize in that browse selection, and if it was, I guess I'm just not sure why Mike wouldn't have picked it. So Mike, when he put the spell back on the top of his deck, he cocked it 90 degrees, and basically he did that because he was pretty sure he was going to play that, and he was just kind of like, you know, thinking one more time and making a final decision on whether or not that was what was going to happen. So yeah, he decides to play that off. Merlin casts that for him. And then again, Merlin's ability, he gets the peek at the new top card of his spellbook and has the option to have Merlin play it if he has the mana available. Kellen untapping, starting his turn. Moving up on Carleon. Like I said about 10 minutes ago, I felt like the game looked really good for Kellen. But Mike has managed to kind of really stall and prolong this out. Kellen plays another egg to just reinforce his life position here, and also play a Violin, even though he doesn't have a target for the Genesis damage. He just wants to get the 2-body on the board to start attacking in for more damage. He's lightning bowling for 3. And the Great Famine will dispel. Kellen now realizing that when Pillar of Zyros went off, they didn't record the life gain from that. So they're just double checking their notes and kind of making sure that life totals are on the same page now. Mike playing out a Gnome Hollow. Again, another defensive site. Not quite as defensive against Kellen's deck because Kellen's minion power is very low. Mike getting a Feast of Crows this time. Mike thinking about what to call. But yeah, he's gonna call Nimbus Djinn. I would have been surprised if he didn't call Nimbus Djinn, just because that, that is the top end kind of creature and kill condition in Kellen's deck. I see an amulet of an amulet of Ninian. Probably butchering that pronunciation, but that is probably a sideboard in. Courtesan Thace, I think, also another sideboard in on Kellen's deck. In the in-game commentary and conversation with the players during Game 1, Mike was really wary of Courtesan Thace. So what Mike is doing here is, like, he cast Feast of Crows, he removed his first target, and then with Feast of Crows in the graveyard, banishing 3 spells to recast it again, to also remove Courtesan Thace. Like I said, in Game 1, he was really wary of a Courtesan Thace, and I think he's afraid of the potential damage that a Courtesan Thace could do if Kellen was able to get it out at just the right time and wreak havoc with his turn. I think losing the Nimbus Djinns really puts Kellen in a tougher spot. Mike's deck, the Archimago deck, has more ways to deal kind of large amounts of burst damage than Kellen's deck. Kellen's deck almost exclusively relies on Nimbus Djinn to be able to unload a high sum of damage. Outside of that, there are more limited options here. Like, you would have to have more Violimps or more Violimps in Cemetery in order to be able to do like 6 to 8 damage in a turn. Mike getting out an egg of his own at this point. And again, it's just going to start ticking up here. Kellen drew a spell for turn. It looked like he drew into a Death Dealer. Swinging with the Imp for 2. The Death Dealer would be a 4 power body. I'm curious to see if Kellen decides to play that out now. Lose his Imp, but also take out the Merlin sitting in the corner here. But he opts not to. He opts to hold that just in case there is a threat that Mike is able to play out. There could still be vampires in his deck, and it would be advantageous to be able to just respond to a vampire with the Death Dealer. Merlin, though, in a very defensive position on the board, and like has been a nuisance ever since it hit the board. In this Archimago deck, Mike has just been able to get an incredible amount of value out of that card by just being able to look at and cast off of the top of his spellbook. Especially mid to late game here when he established at 8, now 10 mana on sites. Gives him a great amount of flexibility when pulling and casting those spells. Mike taking his time again to look through his hand and think out how he wants to attack this. He finds himself again in a position with a lot of cards in his hand. So he's got a lot of options here. Looks like he's stepping up with the egg. He's holding the egg with Archimago. Taking a step forward. He's going to play a Ring of Morgan out. Magic Missiles to remove the Imp. Deal 1 point of damage to Kellen as a nearby ping off of the ring effect. And then also gain a life from the ring. He's going to banish 3 to recast Browse from his cemetery. Ping off of the ring on the cast again. So Kellen will go down to 18. Mike will go up to 16. Gets to look at a pull of 7 cards and choose one. I think that was an Arcane Barrage. He should have Air Threshold for that. Yeah, no problem. And, I mean, if he can get an Arcane Barrage off, that's a potential of 10 damage. He just has to be in a projectile line. And, yeah, Arcane Barrage is, a magic spell. Goes into Cemetery. On his next turn, he could cast it for another 10 if he wanted. Incredibly dangerous at this stage of the game. Mike's still thinking about his turn. Again, browse is... It costs 1. Costs 1 mana. So he's got a lot more mana to play with here. Lightning bolting. Lightning bolting for 3, and then pinging for 1 off of the ring. So end of turn, everyone ticks up from their eggs. Mike ticks up 1. Kellen ticks up 2. And Kellen, with 2 eggs ticking up 2 life per turn, not just his turn, just per every end of every turn, every player's turn. It's a 4-point swing between like one of his turns and all the way back to his turn again. Plays out Amethyst Core. Oh, he's got a Dispel. Dispelling both of Mike's egg and for the ring. What a fortunate, yeah. What an opportune play there. Kellen counting out his mana. He's I think Kellen will have 10 mana next turn. But he had like 8 at this point. And then 2 to recast the imp to do 2 points into Archimago. Ending turn here. Kellen will gain 2 more life from the eggs, take him back up to 18. Again, the Arcane Barrage in Mike's hands is very scary, and that wasn't public knowledge. Browse, you don't have to disclose the card that you are pulling out like you do with, say, a Common Sense. When you fetch that out, you have to reveal what that card is before it goes in your hand. You don't have to do that with Browse. I think you just put it in your hand. So Kellen doesn't necessarily know that Mike is holding an Arcane Barrage. So he's looking at a card with Merlin. Mike having a little difficulty with facing down 2 eggs on the table. He's drawing a spell for turn. This is a what's going on here? This is a minor play mistake, I believe. So he looked at the top of his deck with Merlin before choosing card draw for turn. And the card draw for turn is going to happen at like the beginning step phase of your turn. And that's the last step in that beginning step phase before you go to main phase. Merlin's ability is an activated ability, which can only be played during your main phase. So technically, he should have drawn, chosen which deck to draw from, the spellbook or the atlas, drawn his card for turn, and then he could activate Merlin and look at top card and choose whether or not to play it off of the spellbook. It is a minor mistake, and again, it's an honest mistake. I don't think either of them caught it or will have caught it this game. But I think that it is going to have some repercussions because the card looked like it might have been a Craterize. So now he's sitting on top of a Craterize and an Arcane Barrage in hand. Kellen joking about if he's going to try to hit him with with 4 magic missiles, which is not that far from the truth. He's gonna shoot for 3. And then he's recasting for a disenchant to get rid of one of the eggs. Again, the eggs causing Mike a lot of problems because he can't do full damage to get him to the door in 1 turn. He can do a lot of damage to Kellen, just not enough to get him all the way to door in a single go here, and that's what he kind of needs to do. He's choosing to step up with Merlin, I think, because he wants to get into position and start attacking for 3 with Merlin. He's arcane barraging for, I think that was 6 points of damage. Took him down to 9. The egg at the end of turn is going to heal back up to 10. Still in range, because I think he has that Craterize in his hand now. So, still in the danger zone for getting a Craterize the door on his next turn here. Kellen playing a sight just because he doesn't think he can get away in a meaningful way on board positioning. And then he's going to play a Death Dealer to take care of the threat that is Merlin creeping up trying to get 3 points in. Going to play a Violamp, ping for 2 onto Archimago. End of turn, the egg will tick him up to 11 points. So unfortunately, I think Kellen can still go to door on this turn if Mike has a Craterize in his hand. Because you pitch Craterize and like the center sight takes 10 points of damage. Is it? Yeah, I think he's debating. Yeah, it's a Craterize. So he's Craterizing right down on the middle, right on top of him. It'll do 10 points. It takes him to 1. It's going to clear the board. And not because he's lost all of his blockers. Because he's lost all of his blockers, Archimago, the Avatar, can attack in for that final point of damage, take him to door.
I take 1. I go to 6.
Mike also takes damage for that. He's get down to 6. But it puts Kellen at in a bad situation because he needs a blocker or he needs a way to get away here, and it doesn't look like he has it in his hand. He's taking one final look to see if there's anything in his graveyard that's going to save him here. But he doesn't have an out. Next turn, yeah. Next turn is going to be an attack for 1 for game. That's 2 wins for Mike. He's going to advance to the semifinal match.